Dame Cathedral in Paris collapsed this Monday afternoon following a fire. The flames are believed to have started from the inside the building, and the origin of the fire in this most visited historical monument in Europe is still unknown. Inform and raise awareness about mandatory food standards in Gabon. This is the purpose of the meeting held Monday in the capital of Gabon on the safety of food consumed in this country. In Sudan, the army wants to restore democracy in the country and promises to establish a civil government in which the army will not get involved. These are our top stories. Stay tuned for more details in this newscast. Notre Dame de Paris collapsed following a fire of a rare violence in France. Huge flames have devoured this historic and emblematic building, while a thick smoke emanated from the roof of the building in the early evening. The building gave way to the flames around 8 p.m. local time. The fire, whose origin has yet to be determined, left the attic of the cathedral, according to the indications of the firefighters. The fire would be potentially linked to the renovation of the building. Important blow for the Catholic Church that enters the Holy Week, final stretch before the celebrations of Easter, main Christian festival. A huge loss for the tourist sector also. Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris was one of the most visited historical monuments in Europe. About 13 million visitors visit the building each year. The cathedral was evacuated and a very large security perimeter was set up by the fire brigade. Important means of intervention have been deployed, including 4 large ladders and 2 aerial lift arms. The Secretary of State to the Ministry of the Interior, Laurent Menez, went to the place, and President Emmanuel Macron postponed his speech on the Yellow Vest crisis because of the fire. In Benin, 4 days after the launch of the campaign for the legislative elections, many observers believe that democracy is stalled in the country. Only 2 political parties from the presidential majority are participating. Several others from the same majority and opposition and those deemed historical have been disqualified for administrative reasons, not the Electoral Commission. This on the grounds that they do not fulfill the conditions required by the new Electoral Code, particularly on the rules governing the political parties. The President of the Republic, Patrice Talon, who was called to provide a solution to let the opposition parties participate, refused to interfere. He also rejected the option of organizing a national conference, arguing that it would constitute a questioning of the constitutional order. Since then, the country has dived into opposition protest movements against their exclusion from the polls. In Gabon, an important meeting was held this Sunday at the Liomba National High School, where the Minister of National Education met with those in charge of civil education, social partners, heads of institutions, teacher unions, leaders of high schools, cooperatives, parents-teachers associations, and administrations. The objective of this meeting follows the uprising of the population, but especially the students expressing dissatisfaction with their measure on conditions for obtaining scholarships in Gabon. The approach of the government member was to bring together all the stakeholders of education in order to find a consensus to maintain stability of institutions and social peace. For 8 hours, the discussions were heated. On one hand, the unions suggesting the cancellation of this measure and advised the government to call for a tripartite dialogue. And on the other hand, the parents' unions calling for the appeasement and the resumption of classes in order to save the academic year. The purpose of the meeting held on Monday in Libreville, the capital city of Gabon, on the safety of food consumed in the country was to inform and raise awareness about mandatory food standards in the country. The consumption habits of the population in the world in general, and in Gabon in particular, oscillate between local and imported products. The quality of this food is not always in line with the standards required, yet abiding by the norm is not an option. Joseph Ngowe Revaza, Managing Director of Agano in Gabon, says, ensure food security for consumers. Gabon has set standards. Standards for the application of the food chain that need to be popularized according to the Gabonese Standardization Agency. The first seminar serves as a basis for information and awareness before imposing any fines or lawsuit against those not abiding by the norms. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, 3 months after his inauguration, Felix Tshisekedi is on a national tour, which started from Lumumbashi as his first destination. In the southeast of the country, where he chaired the Defense Council meeting to put an end to the current insecurity in the city. After Lumumbashi, Felix Tshisekedi arrived in Goma yesterday to evaluate the security situation in North Kivu, a region particularly affected by attacks and kidnappings in recent months. His next step will be Beni and Butembo. A man of consensus, General Abdel Fattah Abderrahman, adopted a conciliatory tone while addressing the Sudanese people. From his earliest hours at the head of the Transitional Military Council, he took a step towards the people by going to talk with the demonstrators sitting in front of the army headquarters. After having announced a curfew, the state of emergency and transition of 2 years, the new forces are about to turn back. The demonstrators did not move from their new headquarters, inviting the army to dialogue. The way now seems open to discussions between the parties to initiate a peaceful transition process as desired by the United Nations and the African Union. To do this, the leaders of the army currently in power have invited the political parties to choose a man who will reach consensus for the post of Prime Minister and the continuation of the transition after the eviction of al-Bashir. General Abderrahman, who has headed the council since Saturday, has announced the lifting of the curfew introduced by his predecessor, including promises to uproot the regime of Omar al-Bashir. It's been 5 years today since the Islamic Boko Haram sect stormed a girls' boarding school at Chibok High School, abducting 276 students aged from 12 to 17. 57 hostages managed to escape by jumping vehicles and returning home. The fight for their release moved the world and became an election issue for Muhammadu Buhari, elected president a year later, on the promise to return them to their families.
It is exactly 5 years today. We know Nigerian government has tried. Saudi too, they have tried. But up to now, we are still looking for 112 girls in the hand of captors, of which we as a parent, we want guard intervention.
After negotiations with Boko Haram, 107 girls were released in exchange for prisoners. However, no one has heard from the 112 of the other girls so far. Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris collapsed this Monday afternoon following a fire. The flames are believed to have started from the inside the building, and the origin of the fire in this most visited historical monument in Europe is still unknown. Inform and raise awareness about mandatory food standards in Gabon. This is the purpose of the meeting held Monday in the capital of Gabon on the safety of food consumed in this country. In Sudan, the army wants to restore democracy in the country and promises to establish a civil government in which the army will not get involved. That's all for our newscast today. Stay tuned on Gabon 24 for more news.